Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. Okay, a very eventful Saturday night and Sunday. John Middlekauff, former NFL scout, 3-and-Out podcast at the Volume. Let's start, and we're going to spend some time on Kansas City and San Francisco. Both teams, hemorrhaging wide receivers. And I thought this is the real separator between Mahomes and a good quarterback. Mahomes had an ugly pick. Brock had multiple picks. Brock had 3. But there were 3 or 4 moments in this game. The shotgun 4th and 1, Mahomes running it in, the 33-yard run. And I felt in this game, it'd be easy to pick on Brock Purdy because he didn't play well, but Mahomes didn't play particularly well. But there is something to be said about being resourceful, which I think Andy Reid and the Chiefs have made a living on. They're still ham and egging this wide receiver core. Nobody's ever healthy. Today, Purdy had to deal with that. Debo was sick. Then Ayuk had a big drop. Then Ayuk gets hurt. Listen, they're going to pay Brock Purdy. We know they're going to pay him. But in this moment, and again, it's Mahomes, but I thought there was a separation, kind of these 3 or 4, 2 or 3 magical moments, and it felt like Mahomes had all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really box score scout Mahomes this year. They've been pretty terrible. But halfway through that game, when they were, they didn't have a large lead, but it felt like they were in control of the game. If you just watch, Mahomes always made big plays. And one thing they've done, and this is where Veach gets a ton of credit, and Andy being boys with Spags and bringing him on board, they're a defensive team. I mean, that defense creates havoc. The pass rush,
coverage,
all their DBs can cover. They can lose DB after DB, and they get random guys making plays. So everyone's on the same page because the guy's blitzing nonstop. You got to be able to cover. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes just comes through. They have a little magic with him and Andy in the biggest spots. And they did benefit today from Purdy and Kyle. Just kind of, they were bad. I mean, the Niners are awful in the red zone. Purdy, you cannot afford. I think there's a couple of different angles to this. One, why are we always in such a rush to pay guys that you don't know for sure? Right? Like I got no problem paying Josh Allen after year 3, paying Patrick Mahomes. Even the Ravens butted head with Lamar Jackson. Yeah. I mean, Lamar Jackson's going to go down beside like Ray Lewis is like the second greatest player in the history of the franchise. He's not a free agent. He's going into his 4th year. Let's take a deep breath. If he keeps playing this shitty against good defenses, Minnesota, turn the ball over. Tonight, turn the ball over. Now, there was one, might not have been his fault, but the other, you just need some more plays. You can't go, well, all these injuries. Well, who are the Chiefs playing with? Just make a couple plays. No one's saying you're Patrick Mahomes. But this was a pretty winnable game for the 49ers, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Tom Brady said this. He said this twice with Purdy. 2 of the bigger Purdy completions downfield. Both balls were underthrown. Both.
Well, one's a touchdown at the end of the game. There's 11 minutes to go, and they're down, 2 points. Instead, he ends up throwing the pick in the end.
Yeah, so again, I like Brock, but people struggle to contextualize things. Like, I like Sam Darnold, but this is a perfect situation. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, good run game, excellent protection, brilliant coach, top defensive coordinator. Darnold is now playing better, and he was really good today. We'll get to that in 15 minutes, but it's a perfect situation for Sam Darnold. Like, he went from Adam Gase, a terrible situation, to a perfect one, and he's somewhere in between. This has always been between Shanahan, Trent Williams, Kittle. So today, to me, the whole game came down to the Brandon Ayuk drop. And that forces a punt. McCole Hardman, big punt return. That was the game. Like, that was the moment. Now, who knows what happens? But once again, San Francisco's special teams are a huge liability in a big game.
Well, that's on the coach. Their special teams coverage have been just horrendous since Kyle has been there. He does not care. I mean, that's the only way you can sum up their special teams units. I'm not talking about kicking and punting. I mean, they're on their 3rd kicker in 3 weeks. But the actual coverage units, it's on the coach. Andy Reid, what does he do? Hire Dave Tobe. widely considered the best special teams coach, going back to Chicago with Devin Hester. See, I go even further because it's 21-12. Cowing, the kid from Arizona who can fly, smokes the corner who just comes in. And even Brady's like, listen, obviously you got to hit the pass, but you hit that in stride, he walks into the end zone. So then you're down. Your field goal wins the game at that point. There's 11 minutes to go. Instead, he has to stop. He gets tackled. A couple plays later, he throws a pick. And he's not Mahomes or Josh Allen as a deep ball thrower, but that wasn't the hardest deep ball to throw. Right. Like, you got to hit that in stride, but think of how the entire game has gone. No confidence, not playing well, doesn't have much cohesion with that player. It was just, I just get back to this. If you have question marks about these quarterbacks and they have years to go on their, what's the difference between paying a guy $53 million and $58 million? It's going to cost you more. Well, I mean, I'd rather know for sure. Like, at the end of the day, the Cowboys, they know exactly who Dak is. So why didn't you just pay him a year and a half ago if you're going to pay him? It does save
he's been in the building
million.
forever.
But you're still, he's their guy. He wasn't going to go anywhere. Not that you're kicking Purdy to the curb, but I'd never understand this rush if we got questions. Let's just see this season play out, because when they play good defenses now, Minnesota and Kansas City, like, you can't afford turnovers. You cannot afford turnovers. And this year, Purdy, the fumbles, obviously the picks in big spots, it just cannot happen. If you can't overcome them with just incredible brilliance like Mahomes somehow is doing this year, because he's turned the ball over a lot, Colin, but it hasn't seemed to matter.
Well, as Brady pointed out during the game, there was a stat that first and second down, Mahomes is getting rid of the ball quickly. On third down, he's holding it for 3.5 seconds because he's trying to make big plays. But he realizes he can't do that all the time. And, the other thing with Mahomes, when he missed Worthy on that over-the-top throw, he overshot him. That's okay. He's not going to give you a chance to intercept the ball. But I have like 6 different plays here. There's a flip by him. He throws against his body to Travis Kelce for first down. I have 6. I got sheet after sheet after sheet of notes for this game. Yeah. All 6 are Mahomes plays. Now, that's not to say, right now Seattle's in first place in that division. But I said coming into the season, John, you can only be so old so long. And Debo comes in sick. Ayuk gets banged up. This Niner team, Detroit is like a younger version of the Niners. And younger players, when they do get hurt, recover more quickly. And I kind of feel like the red zone issues are mostly Christian McCaffrey. But I kind of feel like watching Shanahan today was a moment. You're at home. Kansas City's vulnerable. No Rashee Rice. Players go down. And they use McCole Hardman like he's a number 1. And it's just, I think that you have to look at the game as a Niner fan and go, we're not beating these guys unless we got to get more special at certain places. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and for a large portion of the game, and this gets back to when they struggle, is they couldn't run the ball. And when Kyle can't run the ball, his passing game is built off that. He can't just drop back and throw consistently. He's not comfortable calling plays like that. And my one knock on him, as he is a really good coach, and he's proven to be a brilliant play caller over the years, but I wouldn't call him the most adaptive play caller. His offense is his offense. It's very specific. It's completely different, but like Mike Leach ran what Mike Leach ran, right? Kyle runs what he runs. And if he's gashing you in the run game, the passing game runs off that. He can't just go, like, he has to keep running the ball even when it's not working, because his passing plays are all bootlegs and everything off play action instead of just spreading it out and let Purdy in college. And listen, I'm not acting. And one thing I've always pushed back against when people criticize, he's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but relative to the majority of guys over the course of his career, he's been better than or equal to the Daks, the Cousins, the Goffs. But you have to rely on him sometimes. Just spread it out if the run game's not working. And then you notice when they started getting back, Mason started hitting some runs. And that's when Kyle feels the most comfortable. Andy Reid is a good example. Now, he's much older and much more experienced. It doesn't matter. If something's working, he can ride it. If it's not working, they can adapt. It's like Kyle, it's very, very specific. And I just think that so dependent on the run game. I know Pearsall came back from getting shot, so it's hard to put, but he is a first rounder. Cowing is a talented player. You got Kittle out there. Mason can catch the ball. You can still throw the ball if the run game's out. The Chiefs were lined up I dare you to run the ball. We're going to
Right.
stop it. And through the majority of the game, they neutralized.
I mean, think about early in the game. When all your marketing team does is put out fires, they burn out fast, sifting through leads, creating content for infinite channels, endlessly searching for disparate performances, KPIs, all takes a toll. But with HubSpot, you can stop team burnout in its tracks. Plus, your team can achieve their best results without breaking a sweat. With tools like the built-in Breeze AI, pinpoint the best leads possible, capture prospects' attention with click-worthy content, and access all your company's data in one place. No sifting through tabs necessary. It's all waiting for your team in HubSpot. Keep your marketers cool. Make your campaign results hotter than ever. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more. So Kansas City faked a punt, stuffed. They had a pick, and they couldn't get points out of it. And it's like, okay, that when you play Kansas City and you're at home and you snuff a punt and you get a pick, you got to get a touchdown.
Chiefs tried to hand him the game.
I mean, it was right. And I thought, and I wrote those down. I'm like, Purdy got no points for those. And Kansas City by the second quarter led 7-3. And it's like, okay, that is that not the, because a couple different times I put, ball game. But when then Ayuk, drops the ball, Hardman has the big punt return. Mahomes has that flip, that nice flip for a first down. Next play, they do a reverse, right? 8 yards, 8 yards. What you're seeing is, honestly, you're seeing a separation between Andy Reid and the rest of these coaches. Because Shanahan's top 5 to 6 this game today. And when Hardman had that big punt return, and I wrote this down, Andy immediately went into the bag of tricks. He knows you're reeling. He knows guys aren't focused. San Francisco's pissed. Oh, God, we didn't do this. And he goes, and when you're angry, you over pursue. When you're angry, you play with more emotion. And he goes to deception and tricks. He's completely manipulating San Francisco, knowing off the punt return, they're reeling a little bit. They're pissed. Now they want to make a play. And he goes against your emotion, does flips, reverse it. And they put Carson Wentz in the game at one point, like in these high leverage situations. I mean, this is how you win. This is Michael Jordan and the Bulls on bad nights. You'd have these high leverage possessions. Michael hits a jumper, Pippen makes a block, and a tie game becomes a 5-point Bulls lead like that. And they just milk the clock for 40 seconds, hit free throws, and they win the game. Thursday Night Football is on. It's only on Prime Video. Best season yet, packed with big rivalries and even bigger stars. Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit, Kaylee Hartung every week. Games you can't miss. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern with football's best party. TNF tonight, Thursday Night Football tonight. If you're not a Prime member, no problem. Sign up. 30-day free trial. Cancel anytime. Thursday Night Football, and it's on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Think about why Andy does that. Carson Wentz play is a great example. Bye week, they're undefeated, but they haven't played that well. But he's not, some crazy a-hole where he's going to be angry all the time like Belichick and Parcells the way they coached. So he puts that in over the bye week to kind of loosen everyone up, have a good time, keep other people engaged, and people get to look forward to that. This is a team, Colin. The league is very, very lucky that they are banged up at wide receiver. Because I use it. We were talking before you hopped on. Like, if they just had Tyreek Hill, they'd be unbeatable. Well, he's been gone for a while. Let's just say Rice was healthy. Pacheco was healthy. Hollywood Brown had played. The rest of their guys were playing with Worthy. This team would go 16-1 with ease. I mean, I don't think that if they were remotely healthy, they'd be unbeatable because their defense is dominant.
Yeah, I mean, John, Rashee Rice, when he was healthy, he was a 1.
Well, he's become
a 1. He's not Justin Jefferson, but he's a 1. So, there was
the Niners can't score in the red zone, and the Chiefs, in theory, shouldn't be able to either, but they manipulate it, and they are able to find it because of coaching. And I noticed this last week in the Seattle Thursday night game, there were a couple play, or 2 weeks ago, Ryan Grubb, a couple plays didn't hit, but it was like, damn, those guys were open. It was just off. If the Niners played Seattle every week because they own Geno, they'd win 15 games. But when they play Seattle, you're like, that's the old Niners. And then they play these other teams, and they kind of look like a shell of themselves. Today was weird. Obviously, guys got injured and sick. But I just can't do excuses when the Chiefs are playing that way, too. You still got Bosa out there. You still got Fred Warner, Charvarius Ward. You got a lot of money worth of players.
I mean,
the Chiefs, it's 28 points, but there was a late touchdown. The Chiefs had struggled to get to 20 again for the majority of the
Yeah,
game.
you know,
You're at home.
Kansas City literally has no hole. San Francisco has a red zone hole, a special teams hole, a Brock Purdy in big spots hole. I mean, these are now established issues. The red zone, it's established. Special teams, San Francisco, it's established. Brock Purdy in the red zone can't make plays. It's established. There, Brady said something today about this. He's like, I mean, he's trying to be kind, but like at one point, these linebackers, these no-name linebackers for Kansas City. Now Bolton, everybody knows, but it's like, who are these guys? They got injuries.
Yeah.
They're I mean, they just, it is a, it's like when New England was dominating, you're like, I don't really think they have the best roster, but they had the best offensive line coach, the best quarterback, and the best tight end. And you started looking around and you're like, where aren't they great? And you're like, well, they don't get a lot of sacks. And then you look up and you go, oh, they were second in the league in pressures. They were kind of a holeless team. They weren't great everywhere. Yeah. They were terrible nowhere. Kansas City, best coach, best defensive coordinator, best quarterback, best general manager. I just don't. If Rashee Rice can play, this team's winning 3 straight. I just don't see anybody beating them.
I text someone today. You know who they feel like right now is the Alabama Saban dynasty, where players changed. Some years you'd watch them, you're like, they're not as good as previous years, and then the dust settled and they're right there in the championship game. You're like, how the hell did they do this? And it was because of Saban in the program. And Saban in the program for the Chiefs is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And I think Spags, they have a unique thing going because their defensive coordinator is probably never going to become a head coach. So they get this guy that now has institutional knowledge, who's elite at his job. And they have this cohesion. So many teams, you got the coaches not agreeing with the GMs and the owner. It's like they're all on the same page. Andy, Veach, Mahomes, Spags, they're all speaking the same language. And they have the best quarterback in the biggest spots, even when he's not playing well. Isn't he, use the Michael Jordan reference, Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, even when they were playing their worst, you still believed when it mattered the most they were going to come through. And isn't that Patrick Mahomes? He could throw 17 picks in the game in the fourth quarter in a tie game. I believe he's going to make it.
There was once they trailed 7-3 off stuffing a block punt and getting a pick. And I was like, okay, that was your moment. That's where a Baltimore could take a 14-3 lead. And you're like, oh shit. Now Kansas City's reeling and has to bail water. But if you can't nail those down, then that's not it. You're just not going to do it. So and by the way, the Ayuk drop early in the game it's just bad karma, holding out.
He's had a lot. He's had a lot of them to call him this year. I mean, he's had 5 or 6.
Listen, he had a year left. And he decided, I'm holding out with a year left on his contract. There's going to be some animosity. I don't think Kyle's holding it against him. In fact, after the drop, he patted him on the sidelines. He's like, okay, we need you. But there is something to be said. We don't want the NFL to become the NBA. You'll get paid if you're great. Even running backs now, Saquon, you're going to get paid. You're Austin Eckler. Yeah. Somebody's going to want you. I mean, running backs had a huge weekend. You're going to get paid. But you hold out a year early. I mean, look how fast Odell Beckham became irrelevant. I mean, it takes one injury to a player in this league. They're not tackling you in pro basketball. It takes one injury, next man up, and you're just not needed. And so I think Ayuk, he's needed on this team. I think Cowling, the 4th-round pick's better than Pearsall, potentially. I think he runs better.
We can fly.
So, listen, it's
Niners are in trouble. Luckily, they got the Cowboys coming up Sunday Night Football, though. That's might be a get-right game. The Chiefs, are we looking at 14-3, and then the dust settles, and you go, how the hell did they just do that?
I kind of feel.
And this is, I mean, Andy is really kind of establishing himself. I mean, we've had this argument before, but he has a couple, 3, 4, 5 more years. I mean, and it's not like he plays golf. I mean, he's not, as long as he's healthy, he's coaching for the foreseeable future. I think we talk Belichick, Lombardi, Andy Reid. I mean, this is remarkable, the stuff he's doing right now in the NFL.
The 3 best coaches in my lifetime are Bill Walsh, Bill Belichick, and Andy Reid. Now, I think there's some Jimmy Johnsons, young John Madden. There's some really, really, really good coaches out there. But to me, I'm not going to count.
Holmgren was pretty
Oh
damn
God,
good
he
with
was
the
great.
Packers.
Holmgren was great. He got Hasselbeck in that Seahawk team. Name 5 guys on that team: Hutchison, Sean Alexander, Hasselbeck. Can't name the defenders. Holmgren was sensational. So, listen, I think it's Bill Walsh, it's Belichick, it's Andy Reid, and yeah, get right game, the Dallas Cowboys.
I think Kyle really needs to look at Andy and just see how he's adapted. I know he's much older, but you have to be willing to adapt your offensive play calling. You can't just be so beholden to one thing. For a long time when Andy was young, it was just throw the ball,
Yes,
win, run
in
the ball.
Philly.
Well, as this team has become dominant, he's much more inclined to just include he's always thrown the ball to the running back, even when he got to Kansas City, Jamal Charles. But I would say these last 5 years with Pacheco, that they are just much more likely to. Today, he's got Kareem Hunt off the street, and they're just handing him the rock. He'll do whatever it takes now. It's not about style points. And I think Kyle sometimes, like, my offense or the highway. It's like, well, Kyle, your specific thing, you have to. There's so many different flavors now of offense. You have to integrate some different stuff into your packages. And I think he's very hard headed that way. And I think that limits them sometimes in the red zone. I think it's why it's hard. In a weird way, it's easy to play quarterback for him because it's a quarterback friendly offense when you're running the ball, but it can be difficult when things go wrong because it's kind of, there's only one thing to do.
Tom Brady, because he was drafted in the 6th round, and to some degree because Kurt Warner wasn't drafted, those are complete Haley's Comets. Those are outliers. Brock Purdy was passed over by everybody 6 times, most teams 7 times. Is that he's clearly cognitively very sharp, accurate thrower of the football, but in these big spots, you can see the lower round pick. It's like Dak Prescott's a 4th round pick. You can see it. Yeah. Kirk Cousins' movement, you can see it. And this sport, I watched Shedeur Sanders again this weekend. That kid is moving, putting balls into teeny windows. There is something to be said for 1st round picks, something to be said for 1st round picks. Okay,